I am launching PHP Storm to show you how to use an editing environment with PHP files. Now, I have already configured my application, so when I launch it, it is showing me some of my previous projects. The first time you will not have this panel. When PHP Storm is first launched, you have an option of creating a new project, opening something that exists, or creating a new project from something that exists. So you can go in and open files and folders. However, you cannot create a file unless you have an existing folder or preferably a project. A project is nothing other than a way that PHP Storm organizes your folders, and every editing environment uses this concept of projects. So let's create a new project. Notice here again, I've already used this, but we see the path to my htdocs, which is my web root. And you need to make sure you have the correct path here. And for whatever reason, my interpreter keeps on falling down, so I need to put it back. When you initially configure this application, it should automatically know where the interpreter is. I'm working with PHP 5.6. That's the most popular version. However, we do have 7. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a folder, CIS219. There we go. The tip of the day, sometimes there's nice tips. You can tell it not to do that also. Alright, so here again we have more options. However, we see the project is available for us here. And essentially it is pointing to the folder. So if I click on it, there is another folder that PHP Storm uses for management purposes. Alright, so if I were to click on this folder or project, and from the file menu, I have the ability to create a new project, open a directory, open a file, okay, recent, close it, rename it. However, I don't see any file new. Alright, so the way to get a new file, you have to right click, and now we see new. Alright, so that's not that intuitive, but that's the way they do it. Alright, and by the way, there are a lot of keyboard shortcuts if you're fond of them, and some of them I think are very nice. Alright, so a new file is pretty much plain, blank file, directory, a folder, PHP file class. Here again, this works very well with your traditional HTML documents. Alright, so we're going to create a PHP file. And I'll give it a name. I'll call it index.php, so it will load automatically in my folder. And notice, there's really not much to it. However, if you wanted to work with an HTML file, you could use that template, or you can probably create your own templates. Notice we don't even have an ending delimiter. Technically, if all you're doing is testing your PHP, this is pretty much all you need. Alright, so let's do our hello world. Notice the IntelliSense kicking in here. So if I create this and save it and launch it, there is our hello world, and just look at how PHP Storm organizes things. Now notice I deleted one of my quotes. Now I see a red weighty line here, and in the bottom I actually see an error message. And in the right hand side you might also see some notifications. All right, so let's put this back. Oh, let's not put that back. Let's save it. And now let's load it in the browser. So let's launch this. And here you see an error message and telling us that the error is on line 9. So there is some basic debugging that comes with this editor. You also can install specific debuggers, and we will look at more of the tools in the future. All right, so let me just save this. And now I'm going to, from the File menu, create a new project from existing files. So now let's create a project from some existing files. From the File menu, New Project from Existing Files. The web server is installed locally. I will navigate. I have a folder with my Muroc files. And once I make the selection, notice I cannot click Next. I have to go back up and click on Project Root. Here again, this is not intuitive. And I can give it whatever name I want. I'll call it Muroc. And I will open the project in this window. And here you have my project, our project. And these are the folders. There's Chapter 1, Project Discount. There's my index. Now this HTML file is processed by our PHP script. And if I were to launch that, I can fill out the information. And now the PHP is executed. Now just to show you, all you need to do is know what your folders are that are directly inside localhost, and you will get a directory listing. Because there is no default file, remember the default file will always load. So if you are not using a specific PHP editor, this is how you would access your files. Go to localhost, and if the folder is on the root, just type it in. If not, type in the path. So therefore, you have to remember what the name of your folder is. However, everything inside there, look how nice we can see. We can see everything here. And everything will execute. And let's see what we have here. There we are. Should I wish to close this from the File menu, now I will open Recent. And by the way, you can also manage your projects, rename them, remove them, etc. Here again, we're replacing the previous project with this project here. And let me create a variable. Notice I have a red squiggly because I need a semicolon. The $ starts every variable name. So after we create our variable, if we wanted to concatenate it, the concatenation is the period. And I'll save. And I'll reload. And notice we do have an issue of white space here. So I could just put that on the end, and that would work well. All right, if we were to change our single quotes to doubled, and I'm going to save, we don't need to concatenate. It will automatically give us the value for this variable. There you go. So when you're using double quotes, no concatenation is necessary, and double quotes are also required for your carriage returns. So if I were to just duplicate this here, Control C, here again. So if I were to put a BR here to separate these two, and I save, and now I launch, there we are. Now remember, this is HTML. If you look at the rendered code, we're going across. The BR is for HTML. If we wanted to make our source code look nice, and I recommend you always look at your source code when you generate PHP, and now if we look at our source code, we will see that we are down to the next line. It is customary to use both /n and \r for carriage returns because different platforms use different characters, so our variables can contain string or numbers. Here again, no quotations are needed for numbers, and we'll say Teresa is $age. There we go. So what you want to do is you want to just start playing around with variables, with echo and print statements. They both pretty much do the same thing. Start looking at the source code. And also, you might want to take a look at some of the files in the first couple chapters. I realize that the actual expressions have not been covered yet, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of how PHP works with the HTML document.